What happens when the most powerful law enforcement officer in a city forgets that nobody is above the law? What you're about to witness is the moment Police Chief Marcus Hendricks learned that lesson the hardest way possible. And trust me, you won't believe how this unfolds. If you've ever felt powerless against someone abusing their authority, hit that subscribe button right now, because what Judge Caprio does in this courtroom will restore your faith in justice. Drop a comment below telling us about a time you witnessed someone in power get exactly what they deserved. This story is going to shock you. March 14, 2023, Providence, Rhode Island. Municipal Court, Room 302. The gallery is packed with reporters, citizens, and courthouse staff who've all heard whispers about what's coming. At exactly 9:47 a.m., the bailiff calls case number 2023 CRO 8847. The room falls silent. This isn't just another traffic violation or petty crime. This is the case that has been building for months. The one everyone thought would be swept under the rug. The one that was supposed to disappear into the maze of legal bureaucracy and departmental protection. But it didn't disappear, because on this morning, 53-year-old Marcus Hendricks, decorated police chief of Riverside Township with 28 years on the force, 11 commendations, and a reputation as untouchable as they come, is about to face something he's never faced before. Real accountability. And the man sitting behind that bench, 78-year-old Judge Frank Caprio, known nationwide for his compassion and wisdom, is about to deliver a lesson in justice that will echo far beyond these courtroom walls. Like this video if you believe no one should be above the law, regardless of their position or power. Chief Hendricks walks into the courtroom like he owns it. And in a way, he's used to owning every room he enters. 6'2", broad-shouldered, wearing his dress uniform despite this being a civilian court proceeding. The uniform is pressed to perfection. His badges gleam under the fluorescent lights. His black leather shoes are polished to a mirror shine. He carries himself with the swagger of someone who has never been told no. Someone who has spent nearly 3 decades commanding respect through intimidation rather than earning it through integrity. His attorney, Mitchell Grossman from the prestigious firm of Hendricks & Associates, no relation but the irony isn't lost on anyone, walks beside him carrying 2 leather briefcases and wearing a suit that probably costs more than most people make in a month. They take their position at the defense table. Hendricks doesn't sit immediately. He scans the gallery with cold, pale blue eyes, making eye contact with several people who quickly look away. He smirks. Then, finally, he sits, leaning back in his chair with his arms crossed over his chest like he's watching a movie he's already seen and didn't think was very good the first time. On the other side of the courtroom, the prosecution table tells a different story entirely. Assistant District Attorney Sarah Chen, 34 years old, sits with perfect posture, her hands folded on top of a manila folder that's almost bursting with documents. She's been with the DA's office for 9 years. She's prosecuted everything from shoplifting to murder. But this one has kept her up at night for 6 months. Not because it's legally complex, it's actually disturbingly simple, but because of who the defendant is and what it's taken to get him here. Share this with someone who needs to see that justice still exists in this world. Next to Sarah sits 29-year-old Rachel Morrison. Rachel is not an attorney. She's not a legal professional. She's a former elementary school teacher who hasn't taught in 8 months because she can barely leave her house most days. Her hands are shaking slightly as they rest on the table. She's wearing a simple navy blue dress that hangs loosely on her frame because she's lost 23 pounds since July 18, 2022. That's the night her entire life changed, the night she became case number 2023 CRO 8847. Behind Rachel, in the front row of the gallery, sits her husband, David Morrison, 31, holding the hand of Rachel's mother, 62-year-old Patricia Whitmore. Patricia's eyes are already red. She's been crying on and off since they arrived at the courthouse at 8 a.m., 2 hours before the hearing was scheduled to begin. David hasn't let go of his wife's mother's hand because his wife is up there at that table and he can't hold her hand right now, and he needs to hold on to something or someone, or he might fall apart completely. Also in the gallery, scattered throughout, are 12 other people. 11 of them are witnesses, people who saw what happened, people who tried to intervene. People who were threatened into silence for months until Sarah Chen's investigation finally gave them protection and a voice. The 12th person is Officer James Rodriguez, 26 years old, wearing civilian clothes, looking like he might be sick at any moment. Rodriguez was first on the scene that night. Well, second, but we'll get to that. Judge Caprio enters at 9:52 a.m. Everyone rises. The judge is not an imposing physical figure. He's 5'7" on a good day. He moves slowly, his age evident in his careful steps. But when he sits down and looks out at the courtroom, something shifts in the air. There's a weight to his presence that has nothing to do with physical stature and everything to do with the 47 years he spent on the bench, the thousands of lives he's touched, the reputation he's built for being firm but fair, strict but compassionate, uncompromising with the law but deeply understanding of human nature. He adjusts his reading glasses, looks down at the file in front of him, looks up at the defendant, looks at the victim. His face reveals nothing, but everyone who knows Judge Caprio knows that behind those calm brown eyes, he's already seen everything in this file. He's already made certain assessments. And he's about to conduct this hearing in a way that will leave no room for doubt, no space for manipulation, no tolerance for the games that powerful people play when they think they can escape consequences. "Please be seated," Judge Caprio says. His voice is measured, calm, carrying the slight accent of his Italian heritage. Everyone sits. Case number 2023, CRO 8847. The State versus Marcus Hendricks. Charges include assault and battery, intimidation of a witness, abuse of authority under state statute the 1st of May 11, and filing a false police report. He pauses, looking directly at Hendricks. "Mr. Hendricks, you are the police chief of Riverside Township, is that correct?" Quote. Hendricks leans forward. His attorney touches his arm, but Hendricks brushes the hand away. "That's correct, Your Honor. I am the police chief. I have been for 7 years. And I have served this community with distinction for 28 years total. I didn't ask about your service record, Mr. Hendricks. I ask you to confirm your current position." The slightest flicker of irritation crosses Hendricks' face. "Yes, I'm the police chief." "Thank you." Judge Caprio looks at Sarah Chen. "Ms. Chen, the state is ready to proceed?" Quote. Sarah stands. "Yes, Your Honor." "The state is ready." Quote. "Then let's begin with the facts of this case. Ms. Morrison, I understand you're present today and willing to give your testimony." Quote. Rachel Morrison stands slowly. David Morrison leans forward in his seat, as if proximity could protect his wife from what's coming. Rachel's voice when she speaks is quiet but steady. "Yes, Your Honor. I'm ready. Drop a comment right now if you think victims of abuse deserve to be heard, no matter who the abuser is." What happens next in this courtroom over the following 90 minutes will be replayed on news broadcasts across the country. It will be analyzed by legal experts. It will be debated on social media. It will become one of those rare moments when the entire nation pays attention to a local court case because it touches something universal. The abuse of power, the courage of victims, the possibility of justice. But to understand why this moment matters so much, we need to go back. Back to July 18th, 2022. Back to a warm summer evening in Riverside Township when Rachel Morrison's life was destroyed by the man sitting 30 feet away from her, the man in the perfectly pressed uniform who looks utterly unconcerned that his entire world is about to collapse. July 18th, 2022, 9:34 p.m. Rachel Morrison is driving home from a faculty meeting at Brookside Elementary School, where she's taught 3rd grade for 6 years. She's driving her 2019 Honda Accord Silver, license plate RLM 4782. She's taking her usual route down Maple Street, a quiet residential area with a speed limit of 25 miles per hour. She's going 23. She knows because she glances at her speedometer frequently. Rachel is the kind of person who follows rules. She stops completely at stop signs. She uses her turn signals. She doesn't text while driving. She's never gotten so much as a parking ticket. Her phone is connected to the car's Bluetooth, and she's talking to her husband David, who's at home preparing dinner. They're discussing whether to go visit her parents that weekend or finally tackle organizing the garage. Normal conversation, normal evening, normal life. Then, in her rearview mirror, she sees headlights approaching fast, very fast. The car behind her, a black Dodge Charger with tinted windows, is closing the distance rapidly. Rachel checks her speed again. 23. She's not going too slow. The speed limit is 25. But the car behind her is right on her bumper now, close enough that she can't see its headlights anymore. Only the looming dark shape of the vehicle. There's someone riding my bumper really aggressively, she tells David over the phone. Just pull over and let them pass, David says. Some people are just in a hurry. Rachel signals right, slows down, pulls toward the curb to let the car pass. But the Charger doesn't pass. It pulls over behind her. And then lights activate. Red and blue, flashing in her mirrors. It's an unmarked police car. Rachel's heart jumps, even though she knows she hasn't done anything wrong. That's the thing about police lights in your rearview mirror. They trigger anxiety even in people who have nothing to hide, nothing to fear, nothing to apologize for. I'm being pulled over, she tells David. What? Why? Quote, I don't know. I wasn't speeding. I'll call you back. She hangs up, puts the car in park, turns off the engine, puts her hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, exactly like driver's education taught her 20 years ago. She waits. In her side mirror, she sees someone get out of the Charger. Male, large, walking toward her with a flashlight. The flashlight beam hits her mirror, blinding her momentarily. She hears footsteps. The flashlight taps on her window. She rolls it down. Hit that like button if you've ever felt that anxiety when you see police lights, even when you've done nothing wrong. The man standing at her window is wearing civilian clothes, jeans, a tight black t-shirt that shows off muscular arms, no uniform, no visible badge. But he has the flashlight, and the car behind her has the lights. So Rachel assumes he must be police. Plainclothes detective, maybe. License and registration, he says. No greeting, no explanation. His voice is rough, aggressive, laced with something that makes Rachel's survival instincts start screaming even though she can't articulate why. Of course. Can I ask why I was pulled over, officer? Rachel keeps her voice polite, respectful. License and registration. Now. Rachel reaches slowly toward her purse on the passenger seat, narrating her movements. I'm just reaching for my purse to get my license. She's seen enough news stories to know that sudden movements can be misinterpreted. She finds her wallet, pulls out her license, hands it to him. Then she opens the glove box, retrieves the registration and insurance card, hands those over too. The man takes them, shines his flashlight on the license. Rachel Lynn Morrison, 847 Chestnut Avenue. Yes, that's me. You know why I pulled you over, Rachel? The way he says her first name makes her skin crawl. Too familiar. Too intimate. No, sir, I don't. I was going 23 in a 25 zone. I used my signal when I pulled over. I don't believe I violated any traffic laws. You were driving erratically. I wasn't. I was driving normally. Are you arguing with me? His voice rises, sharp and threatening. Rachel's pulse quickens. No, sir. I'm just confused about what I did wrong. The man leans down, bringing his face closer to her window. That's when Rachel smells it. Alcohol. Strong. Unmistakable. This man has been drinking. This man who pulled her over in an unmarked police car, who's demanding her papers, who's speaking to her in increasingly aggressive tones, is intoxicated. Step out of the vehicle, he says. Why? Quote, step out of the vehicle now. Rachel's hands are shaking. Every instinct tells her something is wrong. This isn't protocol. This isn't a normal traffic stop. This man isn't acting like a professional law enforcement officer conducting a routine interaction. But he has the car with the lights. He has her license. He's giving her orders. And Rachel, like so many law-abiding citizens, has been conditioned her entire life to comply with police, to trust the system, to believe that if you just cooperate and stay calm, everything will be fine. So she opens her door and steps out. The moment her feet hit the pavement, he grabs her arm, not guiding, grabbing. His hand wraps completely around her upper arm, his grip painfully tight, and he pulls her away from her car, toward the back of the vehicles where the flashing lights create disorienting shadows. "You've been drinking," he accuses. "I haven't. I don't drink and drive. I barely drink at all. You can give me any test you want. I smell alcohol. That's impossible because I haven't been drinking. You can breathalyze me right now." What Rachel doesn't say, what she's thinking but is too frightened to articulate is, "I smell alcohol on you." Share this video with anyone who's ever been in a situation where they felt powerless and scared. The man pulls her closer. His face is inches from hers now. She can see his features clearly in the streetlight. Mid-50s, hard face, cold eyes, slight stubble, and breath that reeks of whiskey. "You calling me a liar?" Quote. "No, I'm just saying I haven't been drinking and I'm happy to prove it." Quote. "You're happy to prove it?" He laughs, but there's no humor in it. "You think you can tell me what you're happy to do? You think you have any power here?" Quote. "I didn't mean—" "Shut up." He spins her around, pushing her forward so she has to catch herself on the trunk of her Honda. "Put your hands on the car." Rachel complies. Her mind is racing. She needs to document this somehow. Her phone is still in the car, in her purse. Should she reach for it? Should she call 911? But he is police, isn't he? Who do you call when the police are the ones frightening you? Behind her, she hears him moving. Hears his breathing, heavy and irregular. Then she feels his hand on her back. Not checking for weapons. Not conducting any kind of legitimate pat-down. Just touching her. His palm flat against her spine, moving slowly downward. "Please don't touch me like that," Rachel says, her voice cracking. "Like what?" His hand continues moving lower. "Stop. Please stop." Quote. "You telling me how to do my job?" Quote. "I'm asking you to stop touching me inappropriately." His hand moves to her hip. "Inappropriately? You think this is inappropriate?" "I'm conducting a search." "This isn't a legal search. You have no probable cause." "I wasn't breaking any laws." The moment those words leave Rachel's mouth, she knows she's made a mistake. Not because she's wrong. She's absolutely right. But because men like this, men who abuse power, men who are drunk on authority, and also just drunk, don't respond well to having their authority questioned, especially by women. He grabs her by both shoulders, spins her around violently, and slams her back against the car. The impact knocks the wind out of her. His face is right in front of hers. "You want to quote law at me? You want to tell me about probable cause? You have any idea who I am?" Quote. "I don't. I'm Police Chief Marcus Hendricks. I run this entire township. I command over 80 officers. I decide who gets arrested and who walks free. I decide whose complaints get investigated and whose get buried. I own this town. And right now, I own you." Rachel is crying now, tears streaming down her face, her whole body shaking. "Please, I just want to go home to my husband." "Your husband?" Hendricks laughs, and it's the laugh of a man who has done this before, who knows he can get away with this, who has gotten away with this. "Your husband can wait. We're not done here. What happens next is what will eventually bring all of this into Judge Caprio's courtroom, what will finally hold this man accountable after years of similar incidents that were covered up, dismissed, or never reported at all, because the victims were too frightened or too convinced that reporting would accomplish nothing. Hendricks leans in closer to Rachel, his body pinning her against the car. His hand moves to her face, touching her cheek. "You're a pretty one. Bet your husband doesn't appreciate what he has. Bet he doesn't treat you right." "Get away from me," Rachel manages to say through her tears. "Or what? You'll report me?" He laughs again. "To who? I'm the chief. Who's going to investigate me? Who's going to believe you over me?" Quote. Then headlights. A car is approaching from the other direction. slowing down, pulling up beside them. Hendricks immediately steps back from Rachel, his entire demeanor changing in an instant. His hand moves away from her face. He positions himself to block the view of her tear-stained face. The car pulls up. A window rolls down. And Officer James Rodriguez, 3 years on the force, on his way home from his shift, sees his police chief standing on the side of the road next to what appears to be a routine traffic stop. If you've ever witnessed something wrong and had to decide whether to speak up or stay silent, drop a comment and tell us what you did. "Everything okay here, Chief?" Rodriguez calls out. Hendricks walks toward Rodriguez's car, away from Rachel. "Everything's fine, Rodriguez, just conducting a stop. Suspected DUI." Quote. Rodriguez looks past Hendricks at Rachel, who's standing against her car, clearly distressed, her face wet with tears, her body language screaming that nothing about this is fine. Rodriguez is young. He's new. He's been trained to respect the chain of command, to defer to his superiors, to trust that officers above him know what they're doing. But he's also been trained to recognize when something isn't right, and this isn't right. "Need any assistance, sir?" Rodriguez asks, and in those 4 words, he's doing something subtle but significant. He's offering help, but also inserting himself into the situation as a witness. Hendricks' jaw tightens. "I said everything's fine." Rodriguez makes a decision. He pulls his car over and parks behind Hendricks' Charger. He gets out. "Just want to make sure proper protocol is being followed, sir." The temperature drops 10 degrees. Hendricks walks back toward Rodriguez, getting right in the younger officer's face. "You questioning my protocol, Rodriguez?" Quote. "No, sir. Just offering backup." "I don't need backup. I need you to get back in your car and go home." Quote. "Sir, I think..." That's an ORDER, Officer Rodriguez. Behind them, Rachel sees her chance. While Hendricks is focused on Rodriguez, she quickly reaches into her car through the still-open driver's door, grabs her phone from her purse, and activates the voice recorder. She doesn't have time to start video. She doesn't even know if the audio will pick anything up. But it's something, some evidence, some proof that this happened. Rodriguez looks at Rachel again, makes eye contact. In that moment, a silent communication passes between them. "I see you. I know something's wrong. I'm here." Rodriguez pulls out his own phone and does something that will save this case. He opens his body cam app. Rodriguez is one of the officers who's been pushing for all patrol officers to have personal body cams in addition to the car-mounted ones. His department hasn't approved the funding yet, but Rodriguez bought his own camera with his own money and has been wearing it on duty. Right now, in civilian clothes, he doesn't have the camera. But the app on his phone can record both audio and video. He activates it, holding the phone casually at his side, camera facing toward Hendricks and Rachel. Hendricks sees the phone. "What are you doing?" Quote. "Just checking a message, sir." "Put that phone away." "It's my personal phone, sir." "On my personal time." The standoff lasts 10 seconds that feel like 10 minutes. Then Hendricks makes a calculation. He's drunk enough to be impaired, but not drunk enough to have completely lost his tactical thinking. 2 witnesses now. One of them a fellow officer. One of them possibly recording. Time to retreat and regroup. This stop is concluded. Hendricks announces loudly, his voice suddenly taking on an official tone. "Ms. Morrison, you were driving erratically, but I'm going to give you a warning this time. Drive more carefully in the future. You're free to go." Quote. He throws her license and registration at her. The documents flutter to the ground. Rachel kneels down, picks them up with shaking hands. "Thank you," she whispers, even though she has nothing to thank him for, even though he's the one who terrorized her. But victims of abuse often thank their abusers. It's a survival mechanism. Rachel gets in her car, starts the engine. Her hands are shaking so badly she can barely grip the steering wheel. She pulls away slowly, checking her mirrors obsessively, certain that Hendricks will follow her, will pull her over again when Rodriguez is gone, will finish what he started. He doesn't follow her, but this isn't over. Not by a long shot. Like this video right now if you believe officers like Rodriguez, who stand up for what's right, are true heroes. Rachel drives straight home. She pulls into her driveway at 10:07 p.m., sits in the car for 5 minutes, unable to move, replaying everything that just happened. David comes out of the house, worried because she said she was being pulled over, and then never called back. He opens her car door and sees his wife's face. What happened? He immediately knows this is more than a traffic ticket. Rachel, what happened? Quote, she can't speak, can only cry. David helps her into the house, sits her on the couch, gets her a glass of water. It takes 20 minutes before she can form coherent sentences. When she finally tells him, David's face goes through a transformation. Shock, disbelief, fury. We're calling the police right now. He is the police, David. He's the chief. He said nobody would believe me. He said he owns the town. Then we call the state police, the FBI. We call someone. But Rachel knows what David will learn over the coming days. It's not that simple. It's never that simple when the abuser is the one in charge of investigating abuse. They try anyway. July 19, 2022, 7:30 a.m. David calls the Riverside Township Police Department non-emergency line. Asks to file a complaint against an officer, is transferred 3 times. Finally speaks to a Sergeant Dennis Walsh who listens to the complaint and says he'll pass it along to Internal Affairs. July 20th, 2022. No callback. July 21st, 2022. David calls again. Is told the complaint is being reviewed. July 23rd, 2022. Rachel receives a phone call from a blocked number. A male voice, deep and threatening. Drop this complaint, or things get worse for you and your husband. We know where you work. We know where you live. We know you don't have kids yet, but maybe you're planning to. Would be a shame if those plans got complicated. Rachel hangs up, vomits. Tells David. David wants to use this as more evidence, wants to report the threat. But report it to who? The same department whose chief assaulted his wife? The same department whose officers are now threatening them? They're trapped in a nightmare with no clear exit. Rachel stops going to work. Calls in sick. One day becomes a week. Becomes 2 weeks. The school is concerned. Supportive but concerned. Rachel can't tell them why she can't come in. Can't explain that she has panic attacks every time she gets in her car. That she sees police vehicles everywhere and assumes they're all Hendricks. That she hasn't slept through the night since July 18th. David watches his wife disappear into herself. The vibrant, laughing, passionate educator he married is being replaced by someone who flinches at loud noises, who checks the locks on their doors 20 times a night, who barely eats, who cries at random moments throughout the day. August 3rd, 2022. Rachel writes an email to the mayor's office, to the town council, to 3 local news stations, to the ACLU, explaining what happened. Begging for help, begging for someone, anyone, to investigate Police Chief Marcus Hendricks. August 4th, 2022. 2 responses. One from the mayor's assistant, saying the matter will be reviewed. One from a reporter at Channel 9 News saying they'd like to interview Rachel but need corroborating evidence or additional victims before they can run a story accusing a police chief of assault. August 5th, 2022. The mayor's office releases a statement. After thorough review, we find no evidence of misconduct by Chief Hendricks. The alleged incident was a routine traffic stop conducted according to department policy. Quote, Rachel reads that statement and understands, finally and completely, that the system she trusted her entire life, the system she taught her 3rd graders to respect and rely on, is broken. Or rather, it's working exactly as designed. To protect those in power. Share this if you've ever felt betrayed by systems that were supposed to protect you. August 8th, 2022. Rachel Morrison resigns from Brookside Elementary School. She can't explain to the principal why she's leaving. Can only say she needs time off for personal health reasons. The principal, a kind woman named Gloria Chen, who has been in education for 30 years, looks at Rachel and sees something shattered that she doesn't know how to fix. She accepts the resignation, but tells Rachel the door is always open if she wants to come back. Rachel knows she won't be coming back. August 12, 2022. David Morrison is driving home from his job as an IT consultant. He stopped at a random checkpoint. 3 police cars. Officers from Riverside Township. They search his vehicle. Claim they smell marijuana. Tear apart his car. Find nothing. Detain him for 90 minutes on the side of the road. Let him go with no ticket, no charges, no explanation. Just a message. We can get to you anytime. August 15, 2022. Patricia Whitmore, Rachel's mother, receives a visit from 2 Riverside Township officers at her home in the neighboring town of Eastbrook. They ask her about her daughter's mental health issues. Ask if Rachel has a history of making false accusations. Patricia, a retired nurse who raised 3 daughters and doesn't intimidate easily, tells them to leave her property immediately, or she'll call her lawyer. They leave. But the message is clear. Everyone close to Rachel is a potential target. This is how powerful people silence victims. Not just through direct threats, but through an entire system of intimidation that extends to families, to jobs, to every aspect of life, until the victim decides that pursuing justice is more painful than living with injustice. Rachel decides to stop fighting. David and Patricia beg her to keep going, but Rachel is done. She's lost her job, her sense of safety, her peace of mind. She's not going to lose her husband and mother too. She tells them to let it go. They eventually, reluctantly, agree. Marcus Hendricks thinks he's won. He has no idea that Officer James Rodriguez has spent the last month wrestling with his conscience. September 2nd, 2022. Rodriguez sits in his apartment, opens his laptop, and watches the video he recorded on July 18th. He's watched it 50 times at least. Every time, it makes him feel sick. He can hear Hendricks slurring, can see him touching Rachel inappropriately, can hear Rachel's voice shaking as she asks him to stop, can hear Hendricks say, "I own you." Rodriguez knows what he should do. He also knows what will happen to his career if he does it. He's 26 years old. He's wanted to be a police officer since he was 12, since the day Officer Thomas Brennan talked him out of joining a gang in his neighborhood, gave him a different path, a different future. Rodriguez became a cop to be like Brennan, to help people, to protect victims, to be someone kids in tough situations could trust. But if he comes forward with this video, his career in Riverside is over. Probably his career in law enforcement, period. Hendricks has connections throughout the state. He has friends in departments across Rhode Island and Massachusetts. He has the power to blacklist Rodriguez from ever working as a cop again. Rodriguez thinks about staying silent, about keeping his job, about building his career. Then he thinks about Rachel Morrison's face in that video. The terror in her eyes, the way she shook, the way she thanked her abuser just to escape. September 3rd, 2022. Rodriguez calls Sarah Chen at the district attorney's office. He doesn't go through official channels. Doesn't file a report with his own department. Goes directly to the DA. Tells her he has video evidence of Police Chief Marcus Hendricks assaulting a woman during a traffic stop. Sarah Chen has been an ADA for 9 years. She's heard a lot of claims. Most are credible. Some aren't. But something in Rodriguez's voice tells her this is real, this is serious, and this is going to be complicated. "Send me the video," she says. Rodriguez does. Sarah watches it 3 times. Then she calls her boss, District Attorney Michael Patterson. Patterson watches it twice. Then they both understand that they're holding evidence that will either bring down a corrupt police chief or end both of their careers if they can't make it stick. "We need the victim," Sarah says. "We need Rachel Morrison to be willing to testify." Without her cooperation, this is just a video that a defense attorney will tear apart. Then let's go talk to Rachel Morrison. Drop a comment telling us what you would do if you were Rodriguez in this situation. September 7th, 2022. Sarah Chen and investigator Marcus Blake knock on the door of 847 Chestnut Avenue at 6 p.m. David Morrison answers. When Sarah identifies herself as being from the district attorney's office, David's face hardens. "My wife has been through enough. We're not doing this anymore." Mr. Morrison, I understand. But we have new evidence, strong evidence. We have video of what Chief Hendricks did to your wife. David's expression shifts. Video? What video? Quote, from another officer who was at the scene, Officer Rodriguez. He recorded the encounter. Mr. Morrison, with this evidence and your wife's testimony, we can bring charges. Real charges. We can hold Hendricks accountable. David turns and calls into the house. Rachel, can you come here? Quote, Rachel appears in the hallway. When she sees people at the door, she freezes. Who is it? Quote, District Attorney's Office. They say they have video of what happened. They want to bring charges against Hendricks. Rachel walks slowly to the door, looks at Sarah Chen. Video. Quote, Sarah nods. Officer Rodriguez recorded part of the incident on his phone. We have Hendricks touching you inappropriately. We have him making threats. We have him admitting he's the police chief and that he owns you. It's strong evidence, Ms. Morrison. But we need you. We need your testimony about what happened before Rodriguez arrived. We need you to be willing to stand up in court and face Hendricks. Rachel is silent for a long moment, then quietly, what happened to the last complaint I filed? Quote, it was buried by his department. What happened when I emailed the mayor? Quote, I'm guessing nothing. My mother was harassed, my husband was detained, and had his car searched. I lost my job. I haven't left my house alone in 6 weeks. And you want me to voluntarily put myself back in front of this man who has the entire police force protecting him. Quote, I know what I'm asking is enormous, Sarah says. I know you have every reason to say no and to never want to think about this again. But, Ms. Morrison, Rachel, you are not the only victim. We've started digging into Hendricks' history. There are other complaints that were dismissed. Other women who were too scared to come forward. If we don't stop him now, with this evidence, he will do this again. To someone else's wife. Someone else's daughter. Someone else's mother. Rachel looks at David, at her mother who's now appeared behind David, back at Sarah Chen. If I do this, can you promise me it will work? Can you promise he'll be convicted and I'll be safe? Quote, Sarah Chen does not lie to victims. I can't promise conviction. Juries are unpredictable, and Hendricks will have expensive lawyers. But I can promise you that I will fight with everything I have. I can promise you won't face him alone. And I can promise that even if we don't win in court, we will expose what he did. We will create a record. We will show other victims that they can come forward. Rachel closes her eyes, takes 3 deep breaths, opens her eyes. Okay, I'll do it. Quote, the investigation that follows over the next 6 months is exhaustive and dangerous. Sarah Chen doesn't just build a case around the July 18th incident. She digs into Marcus Hendricks' entire career. And what she finds is a pattern that makes her physically ill. November 2022. Sarah discovers that in 2019, a woman named Jennifer Torres filed a complaint against Hendricks after he allegedly assaulted her during a traffic stop. The complaint was investigated by Hendricks' own department and deemed unfounded. Jennifer Torres moved to Florida 3 months later. Sarah tracks her down. Jennifer, now 33, living in Tampa, working as a dental hygienist, reluctantly agrees to talk. Her story is chillingly similar to Rachel's. Late-night traffic stop. Hendricks, in an unmarked car. Aggressive behavior. Inappropriate touching. Threats. Jennifer filed her complaint and was subsequently harassed until she left the state entirely. I thought about coming back to testify if anyone ever brought charges. Jennifer tells Sarah over a video call. But I also really like being able to sleep at night, which I couldn't do when I lived in Riverside. I'm sorry, I can't help you. Sarah understands. Some victims aren't ready. Some will never be ready. She can't force Jennifer to relive her trauma. December 2022. Sarah finds complaint number 2. Angela Martinez, 29, pulled over by Hendricks in June 2020. Similar pattern. Similar harassment. Complaint filed. Dismissed. Angela still lives in Riverside. Works as a bank teller. Sarah approaches her carefully. Angela sits across from Sarah in a coffee shop 3 towns over where nobody will recognize them. "I want him to pay for what he did," Angela says. "But I have 2 kids. I have an ex-husband who's already trying to get full custody. If I testify and this goes public, he'll use it against me. He'll say I'm unstable. He'll say I'm making things up for attention. He'll say I'm not fit to have my children." "What if I could get other victims to testify?" Sarah asks. "What if you weren't alone?" Quote, Angela considers. "If there are others, and if they're willing to go public, then yes, I'll testify. But I'm not doing this alone." January 2023. Sarah finds complaint number 3. Melissa Chen, no relation to Sarah, 41 years old, owner of a small bookstore in Riverside, pulled over by Hendricks in March 2021. The pattern repeats. The outcome repeats. Complaint dismissed. But Melissa Chen is different. Melissa has been sober for 12 years, recovering from alcohol addiction. She's built a life she's proud of. She's respected in the community. She's engaged to a wonderful man named Robert. And she's tired of being afraid. "I'll testify," Melissa tells Sarah without hesitation. "I don't care what it costs me. I've already lost everything once in my life and rebuilt. I can do it again if I have to. But I'm not letting that man hurt anyone else." Quote, with Melissa's commitment, Angela agrees to testify. Now Sarah has Rachel, the strongest case with video evidence. Angela, establishing pattern. Melissa, reinforcing pattern and adding credibility. 3 women. 3 separate incidents. 1 predator in a uniform. February 2023. Sarah also subpoenas all of Hendricks' personnel records, disciplinary files, and internal affairs investigations. What she discovers is staggering. 17 complaints against Hendricks over his 28-year career. 17. Everything from excessive force to verbal abuse to inappropriate conduct with female citizens. All dismissed, all explained away, all resulting in no punishment more severe than a written warning that went into a file nobody ever read. Sarah also investigates Hendricks' personal life. Discovers he's been divorced twice. Tracks down the first ex-wife, Diane Hendricks, now Diane Kowalski, living in Maine. Diane agrees to talk and tells Sarah about emotional abuse that lasted throughout their marriage, about Marcus's belief that he was superior to everyone, about his drinking that got progressively worse over the years. "I'm not surprised he finally went too far," Diane says. "I'm only surprised it took this long for someone to hold him accountable." The second ex-wife, Christine Hendricks, now Christine Wu, refuses to speak to Sarah, but her silence speaks volumes. Like this video if you believe patterns of behavior reveal someone's true character. March 2023. Sarah Chen has built a comprehensive case. She has Rachel Morrison's testimony. She has Rodriguez's video. She has Angela Martinez and Melissa Chen ready to testify to establish pattern. She has 17 prior complaints showing a history of abuse. She has expert witnesses who will testify about abuse of authority and predatory behavior. She has blood alcohol estimates from toxicology experts who reviewed the video and will testify that Hendricks appeared intoxicated. She presents everything to a grand jury. March 10th, 2023. The grand jury indicts Police Chief Marcus Hendricks on multiple charges, including assault and battery, intimidation of a witness, abuse of authority, and filing a false police report. The arrest warrant is executed by state police, not Riverside officers. Hendricks is arrested at his home at 6 a.m. He's handcuffed. Read his rights. Taken to the state police barracks instead of his own department. Processed like any other criminal defendant. Photographed for a mugshot that will be published in every news outlet in Rhode Island by noon. His bail is set at $100,000. He posts it within 3 hours. And on March 14, 2023 at 9:52 a.m., we return to Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom where we started this story. Now you understand what brought everyone here. Now you understand what's at stake. And now you're about to witness what happens when someone who has abused power for nearly 3 decades finally faces a judge who cannot be intimidated, cannot be bought, and will not play politics with justice. Share this with anyone who needs to see that the truth eventually comes out, no matter how powerful the liar. Judge Caprio looks at the packed courtroom, looks at Rachel Morrison at the prosecution table, hands folded, barely breathing. looks at Marcus Hendricks at the defense table, arms still crossed, face set in an expression of contemptuous confidence. "Ms. Chen," the judge says, "please present your opening statement." Sarah Chen stands. She doesn't use notes. She's lived this case for 6 months. "Your Honor, this case is about the abuse of power in its most fundamental and dangerous form. The defendant, Police Chief Marcus Hendricks, used his position of authority to victimize Rachel Morrison, a law-abiding citizen who had the misfortune of being on the road at the same time as a drunk, corrupt police chief, who believed he could do whatever he wanted because of his badge." Mitchell Grossman, Hendricks, attorney, stands. Objection. Ms. Chen is making arguments, not presenting facts. Sustained. Ms. Chen, confine your opening to facts you intend to prove. Sarah nods. "Your Honor, the evidence will show that on July 18, 2022, at approximately 9:34 p.m., Rachel Morrison was driving home from work when she was pulled over by the defendant in an unmarked vehicle. The evidence will show that the defendant had been drinking. The evidence will show that he touched Ms. Morrison inappropriately. The evidence will show that he threatened her. The evidence will show that he explicitly told her he owned her, and that nobody would believe her if she reported him. The evidence will show all of this because we have video of the incident recorded by Officer James Rodriguez. We have Ms. Morrison's testimony. We have medical records showing Ms. Morrison's psychological trauma following the incident. We have a pattern of similar behavior with other victims. And we have the defendant's own words admitting who he is and what he's capable of doing. Sarah pauses, looking directly at Hendricks. The evidence will show that for 28 years, Marcus Hendricks has hidden behind a badge while committing the very crimes he swore to prevent. Today, that ends. She sits down. Grossman stands for the defense. He's good at his job. Expensive lawyers usually are. "Your Honor, what we have here is a tragic misunderstanding that has been blown out of proportion by an overzealous prosecutor with political ambitions." Sarah's jaw tightens, but she doesn't object. The defense will show that Chief Hendricks conducted a lawful traffic stop of a vehicle that was being operated erratically. We will show that Ms. Morrison became confrontational during this stop. We will show that Chief Hendricks acted professionally throughout the encounter. We will show that Ms. Morrison's allegations stem from a fundamental misunderstanding of police procedures and from personal issues in her life that have nothing to do with my client. And we will demonstrate that a brief video clip taken out of context does not tell the full story of what happened that night. Grossman sits down, looking confident. Judge Caprio removes his glasses, cleans them slowly, puts them back on. "Ms. Chen, call your first witness." The state calls Rachel Morrison. Rachel stands, walks to the witness stand. Her legs feel like they might give out. She's sworn in, sits down, looks out at the courtroom. At Hendricks, who's staring at her with those cold eyes, a slight smile on his face as if to say, "You think you can hurt me? You think you matter?" Sarah approaches gently. "Ms. Morrison, can you tell us what you do for a living?" Quote, "I was a third-grade teacher. I'm currently unemployed." "And on July 18th, 2022, were you employed as a teacher?" Quote, "Yes." "Tell us about that evening." Rachel takes a shaky breath and begins. She describes leaving the faculty meeting, describes driving home, describes seeing the car approaching fast behind her, describes being pulled over, describes everything that happened before Rodriguez arrived. She's crying within 3 minutes. Sarah hands her tissues, waits patiently for her to compose herself, never rushes her. When Rachel describes Hendricks touching her face and saying, "I own you," several people in the gallery gasp audibly. David Morrison puts his face in his hands. Patricia Whitmore openly cries. Hendricks maintains his slight smile. He's performed this role before. The falsely accused. The misunderstood authority figure. The victim of a witch hunt. "Ms. Morrison," Sarah says gently, "I'm going to show you a video now. It's from Officer Rodriguez's phone. It shows the last few minutes of your encounter with the defendant. I need to warn you that watching this may be difficult." Rachel nods. "I understand." The bailiff dims the lights. A screen descends. The video plays. Even though it's grainy phone footage, shot from an angle, everything is clear enough. You can see Hendricks stepping back from Rachel when Rodriguez pulls up. You can hear him saying, "Everything's fine." You can see Rachel's tear-stained face. You can hear Hendricks telling Rodriguez to leave. You can hear Rodriguez offering backup. You can hear the tension. And then, critically, you can hear Hendricks say to Rachel, right before releasing her, "You got lucky tonight. Rodriguez won't always be around. Remember that." The video ends. The lights come back up. The courtroom is silent. Judge Caprio leans forward. "Ms. Morrison, I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. In all your years as a law-abiding citizen, had you ever been afraid of police before this incident?" Quote, "No, Your Honor, never. I was raised to trust police, to see them as helpers, to believe they were there to protect people like me." "And now?" Quote, Rachel's voice breaks. "Now I'm afraid every time I see a police car. I have panic attacks when I drive. I lost my job because I couldn't function. I lost my sense of safety in the world. I lost my belief that the system works. Until Miss Chen contacted me, I thought I had to just live with what happened to me because the person who did it was too powerful to stop." Quote. Judge Caprio nods slowly, looks at Hendricks. "Mr. Grossman, your witness. If you believe victims deserve to be protected and abusers deserve to be punished, hit that subscribe button right now." Grossman approaches Rachel. His strategy is obvious. Discredit her. Make her seem unreliable. Make the jury question her version of events. "Miss Morrison, you say my client touched you inappropriately, correct?" Quote, "Yes. But you didn't go to a hospital that night for an examination, did you?" Quote, "No. You didn't take photographs of any bruises or injuries, did you?" Quote, "I didn't have visible bruises. The harm wasn't. Please answer yes or no. You didn't take photographs." Quote, "No. You didn't call 911 while this was allegedly happening?" Quote, "I was afraid." "But your phone was in the car, wasn't it?" Quote, "Yes, but..." "Yes or no, Ms. Morrison?" "Yes. So you had access to a phone. You could have called for help. But you didn't." Quote, "I was terrified. He's the police chief. Who would I call?" Quote, Grossman pounces. "You would call 911, Ms. Morrison. That's what citizens do when they're in danger. But you didn't call because you weren't actually in danger, were you? You were upset about being pulled over, and you've built this entire narrative in your mind." Objection. Sarah is on her feet. Argumentative. Mr. Grossman is testifying. Sustained. Grossman shifts tactics. "Ms. Morrison, you were fired from your teaching position, weren't you?" Quote, "I resigned after being placed on administrative leave, correct?" Quote, "I was on leave because of trauma from this incident." Or were you on leave because of performance issues at work that predated this alleged incident? Quote, Rachel looks confused. "What? No, I was Teacher of the Year in 2021. I've never had performance issues." Grossman pulls out a document. "Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence an email from Principal Gloria Chen, dated July 10, 2022, 8 days before the alleged incident, expressing concern about Ms. Morrison's decreased engagement with students." Sarah stands. "Your Honor, may I see that document?" Quote, The document is passed around. Sarah reads it quickly. It's a routine check-in email where Gloria Chen mentioned wanting to talk to Rachel about some curriculum planning. There's nothing about performance issues. Grossman is twisting it. "Your Honor, this email says nothing about performance issues. It's about curriculum planning." Mr. Grossman is misrepresenting evidence to the court. Judge Caprio reads the email himself, looks at Grossman over his glasses. "Mr. Grossman, this email does not support your characterization. Do not misrepresent evidence in my courtroom." Grossman is unfazed. He's accomplished what he wanted. He's planted a seed of doubt, suggested there might be other reasons Rachel was struggling, implied she might not be a reliable narrator of her own life. He continues questioning Rachel for another 20 minutes, trying to find inconsistencies, trying to suggest she misinterpreted normal police procedures, trying to hint that maybe she was attracted to Hendricks and misread his professionalism as something else. That last implication makes Rachel finally snap. "I was not attracted to him. He was drunk. He threatened me. He assaulted me. And you standing here trying to twist what happened into somehow being my fault is exactly why women don't report when powerful men abuse them. Because we know we'll be treated like this, like we're liars, like we asked for it, like we deserved it." Quote. The courtroom erupts in applause. Judge Caprio doesn't stop it immediately. He lets it go for 5 seconds, then bangs his gavel. "Order! I appreciate the sentiment, but we will maintain courtroom decorum." Grossman has no more questions. He's actually lost ground. Rachel's passionate defense of herself has made her more credible, not less. Ms. Chen, redirect? Quote, "No, Your Honor." Ms. Morrison has told her truth, clearly and powerfully. Quote, Rachel steps down from the witness stand, returns to her seat. David is looking at her with so much pride and love that it's visible from across the room. The state calls Officer James Rodriguez. Rodriguez walks to the stand. He's in his dress uniform. He's been advised by his union representative not to testify. He's been warned by several fellow officers that he's committing career suicide. He's testifying anyway. He confirms everything about the video. Confirms that when he arrived, Rachel was clearly distressed. Confirms that Hendricks appeared intoxicated. Confirms that Hendricks tried to order him to leave. Confirms that he stayed and recorded because he believed something wrong was happening. Grossman's cross-examination tries to paint Rodriguez as a disgruntled officer with a grudge against the chief. Rodriguez calmly denies it. Says he respected Hendricks until that night. Says seeing what Hendricks did changed his entire perception of the department. Officer Rodriguez, Judge Caprio interjects, "You understand that by testifying here today, you've likely damaged your career in law enforcement?" Quote, "Yes, Your Honor." "Why did you do it?" Quote, Rodriguez looks directly at the judge. "Because I became a police officer to protect people." That's what we're supposed to do, protect and serve. If I stayed silent about what I saw, I'd be betraying every oath I took. I'd be betraying Rachel Morrison, who needed someone to stand up for her. And I'd be betraying every citizen who trusts that when they call 911, when they see a badge, they're going to be helped, not hurt. The courtroom is dead silent. Judge Caprio nods. "Thank you, Officer Rodriguez. Your courage is noted." Comment below if you think Rodriguez should be commended for his bravery, not punished. The state calls Angela Martinez. She testifies about her encounter with Hendricks in June 2020. Describes the same pattern, the intimidation, the inappropriate touching, the threats, the dismissal of her complaint. The state calls Melissa Chen. She testifies about her March 2021 encounter. Same pattern, same behavior, same result when she tried to report it. By the time both women have testified, a picture has emerged that's impossible to ignore. This isn't one incident. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is a predator who has used his badge as a weapon for years. The state rests. Now it's the defense's turn. Grossman calls a parade of character witnesses, fellow officers who talk about Hendricks' distinguished career, his commendations, his leadership, his dedication to the community. They talk about how Hendricks has reduced crime in Riverside, how he's been tough but fair, how he's been a mentor to younger officers. None of them address the specific allegations. None of them can explain away the video. They're just trying to create reasonable doubt by painting Hendricks as a good man who couldn't possibly have done what he's accused of doing. Then Grossman makes a tactical decision. He calls Hendricks himself to testify. This is risky. Defendants don't have to testify. Often it's better if they don't. But Grossman has calculated that the video is too damaging. They need Hendricks to explain himself directly, to humanize himself, to control the narrative. Marcus Hendricks takes the stand. He's sworn in. He sits down, still looking confident, still projecting authority even though he's the defendant. Grossman walks him through his career, all the good things, all the accomplishments. Then they get to July 18th, 2022. Chief Hendricks, what happened that night? Quote, I was driving home after having dinner with colleagues. I saw a vehicle being operated erratically, swerving slightly, slowing down and speeding up inconsistently. As a law enforcement officer, I'm never really off duty. I pulled the vehicle over to check if the driver was impaired. Were you drinking at this dinner? Quote, I had one beer with my meal, hours earlier. I was completely sober when I pulled over Ms. Morrison. This is a direct contradiction of the toxicology expert's testimony from earlier. Hendricks is betting that his word as police chief will carry more weight than expert analysis of video footage showing him slurring and unsteady. What happened during the stop? Quote, I asked for her license and registration. She became argumentative, started quoting law at me, refused to comply with basic instructions. When I asked her to step out of the vehicle to conduct a field sobriety test, she became increasingly agitated. Did you touch her? Quote, I conducted a standard pat-down for weapons. She interpreted that as inappropriate, but it was standard procedure. Did you threaten her? Quote, absolutely not. I informed her that she was being uncooperative and that such behavior during a traffic stop can lead to escalation. That's not a threat. That's a fact. What about the statement, I own you, that appears on the video? Quote, Hendricks doesn't miss a beat. I never said that. The audio on that video is poor quality. What I actually said was, I warned you. As in, I warned you that being uncooperative would make this stop more difficult. The prosecution has deliberately misconstrued that audio to fit their narrative. This is brilliant lying, plausible enough that some people might believe it, especially people who want to believe that a police chief couldn't possibly be a predator. Grossman sits down. Sarah Chen stands up. This is the moment everyone has been waiting for. Share this right now because what happens next is absolutely incredible. Sarah doesn't immediately approach the witness stand. She stands at the prosecution table, looking at Hendricks for a long moment. Chief Hendricks, how many complaints have been filed against you over your 28-year career? Quote, Hendricks shifts slightly. I don't have an exact number. Over a long career, complaints happen. Most are unfounded. The exact number is 17. Do you recall that number? Quote, if you say so. And of those 17 complaints, how many resulted in any disciplinary action beyond a written warning? Quote, I don't recall. The answer is 0, not 1. Does that strike you as odd? Quote, it strikes me as proof that the complaints were baseless. Or does it strike you as evidence that your department protected you? Quote, objection, speculative. Withdrawn. Chief Hendricks, you testified that you had 1 beer hours before pulling over Ms. Morrison. What restaurant were you at? Quote, Hendricks pauses for just a fraction of a second. The Riverside Grill. What time did you leave? Quote, around 8:30. And who were you with? Quote, colleagues. Names? Quote, I don't see how that's relevant. Names, please, Chief Hendricks. Sergeant Walsh, Detective Freeman. Thank you. We've subpoenaed both of them. They'll testify tomorrow. I'm confident their testimony will be very illuminating. Hendricks realizes his mistake. If Walsh and Freeman contradict him, if they say he had more than 1 beer or left later than 8:30, his entire testimony collapses. Sarah moves closer. You said Ms. Morrison was driving erratically, swerving, slowing and speeding. Is that correct? Quote, yes. Quote, we've obtained traffic camera footage from cameras at 2 intersections along Maple Street that Ms. Morrison traveled that evening. The footage shows her vehicle proceeding normally, obeying all traffic laws, maintaining consistent speed. Would you like to revise your testimony about her driving erratically? Quote, Hendricks, jaw tightens. The footage you're referring to may have been from before the erratic behavior I observed. Or the erratic behavior never happened and you pulled her over for no legitimate reason. That's your opinion. It's not an opinion, Chief Hendricks. It's what the evidence shows. Let's talk about the audio on Officer Rodriguez's video. You claim you said, I warned you, not, I own you. We had that audio analyzed by a forensic audio expert. Would you like to know what they determined? Quote, Hendricks says nothing. The expert clearly identified the words, I own you, there is no ambiguity. You told Ms. Morrison that you owned her. Why would you say that to a citizen during a traffic stop? Quote, I didn't say it. Quote, the expert disagrees. So does everyone who's listened to that video. But let's move on. You said you conducted a standard pat-down for weapons. Can you describe proper pat-down procedure for me? Quote, I don't see why I need to. Humor me, Chief. Describe proper procedure. Hendricks, falling into the trap. You have the subject place their hands on a vehicle or wall, feet spread apart. You conduct a brief, professional search of the outer clothing for weapons or contraband. Brief and professional, good. And how long does such a search typically take? Quote, 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Would a proper pat-down include touching a subject's face? Quote, Hendricks realizes where this is going. Depends on the circumstances. What circumstances would justify touching a traffic stop subject's face? Quote, if there was reason to believe they had concealed something there. Did you believe Ms. Morrison had concealed a weapon on her face? Quote, no. Then why did you touch her face? Quote, I don't recall touching her face. The video shows you touching her face. Multiple witnesses saw you. Are they all lying? Quote, I'm saying I don't specifically recall that detail. Sarah picks up a document. Chief Hendricks, how many times have you been married? Quote, objection, relevance. Judge Caprio looks at Sarah. Ms. Chen, where are you going with this? Quote, Your Honor, pattern of behavior toward women is relevant to these charges. Overruled, but get to your point quickly. Sarah continues. How many times, Chief Hendricks? Quote, twice. Both marriages ended in divorce, correct? Quote, yes. Your first wife, Diane Kowalski, née Hendricks, has provided a statement to our office. In it, she describes years of emotional abuse. Would you like to respond to that? Quote, Diane is bitter about our divorce. She's lied about me before. Your second wife declined to speak to us. But her divorce filing cited cruel and inhumane treatment. That's a direct quote from the court documents. Hendricks is starting to look less confident now. The armor is cracking. Sarah goes for the kill. Chief Hendricks, look at Rachel Morrison. She points to Rachel. Look at her and tell this court that you didn't traumatize her. Tell her that you didn't abuse your power. Tell her that you didn't assault her and then threaten her into silence. Hendricks looks at Rachel. For just a moment, something flickers in his eyes. Recognition. Maybe even shame. But then the mask comes back. I conducted a lawful traffic stop. If Ms. Morrison felt traumatized, that's unfortunate, but it's not a crime. Assaulting someone is a crime. Abusing authority is a crime. Lying under oath, which is what you're doing right now, is a crime. Objection! Sustained. Ms. Chen, you've made your point. Sarah steps back. No further questions. The damage is done. Like this video if you think Sarah Chen just demolished Hendricks' entire defense. But we're not done yet. Because what happens next is where Judge Frank Caprio reminds everyone why he's legendary. Both sides rest. Closing arguments are presented. Sarah summarizes the evidence, the pattern, the video, the testimony. Grossman argues reasonable doubt, misunderstanding, political prosecution. Then Judge Caprio speaks. I've sat on this bench for 47 years. I have heard thousands of cases. I have seen every kind of human behavior, from the most noble to the most depraved. And I have learned that the measure of a society is not how it treats its most powerful members, but how it protects its most vulnerable. He looks directly at Hendricks. Mr. Hendricks, you were given a badge and a gun. You were given authority over your fellow citizens. You were given trust. And you betrayed all of it. Not once, not twice, but repeatedly, over years, believing that your position made you untouchable. Hendricks stares back, defiant. You used that badge not to protect people, but to terrorize them. You used that authority not to serve your community, but to serve your own desires. You targeted women who you knew would be afraid to report you. You silenced them with threats. You hid behind your department. And you made those victims believe that the system would never listen to them. Judge Caprio's voice rises. But they were wrong, because the system, when it works properly, does listen. It does investigate. And it does hold people accountable, no matter how powerful they think they are. Hendricks' confidence is evaporating. He's sitting rigid now, his face reddening. You told Rachel Morrison that you owned her. That may have been true in that moment, when you had all the power and she had none. But you don't own her now. You don't own this courtroom. You don't own justice. Judge Caprio pauses, looking down at his notes, then back up. Based on the evidence presented, I find you guilty on all counts. Assault and battery, intimidation of a witness, abuse of authority, filing a false police report. Each of these crimes carries significant penalties. But more than the legal penalties, you have lost something you can never get back. Your reputation, your career, your freedom. The courtroom is absolutely silent. Hendricks suddenly stands up. His attorney tries to pull him back down, but Hendricks yanks his arm away. "This is bullshit," Hendricks shouts. "You have no idea what it's like out there, what we deal with every day, the shit we see, the decisions we have to make in seconds. You sit up there in your robe, safe and comfortable, judging people who actually do the work, who actually put their lives on the line. You want to condemn me? For what? For being too rough with some woman who couldn't follow basic instructions? For touching her arm? This whole case is a joke. This is political correctness gone insane. This is..." "Sit down, Mr. Hendricks." Judge Caprio's voice is like thunder. Hendricks doesn't sit. He's shaking with rage now, all pretense of control gone. "I've given 28 years to this job. I've sacrificed my marriages, my relationships, my peace of mind. I've earned respect. I've earned the right to..." "You've earned nothing," Judge Caprio interrupts, his voice cutting through Hendricks' rant like a blade. "Respect is not earned through intimidation. Authority is not proven through abuse. You didn't sacrifice for your community. You sacrificed your community for your own ego." Quote. And then Hendricks says, "The thing that will be replayed on every news channel, every social media platform, every courtroom training video about the abuse of power." He points at Judge Caprio, his hand shaking, his face contorted with rage. "I own you, piggy!" The courtroom gasps collectively. Several people jump to their feet. The bailiff moves toward Hendricks. David Morrison has to be restrained by the people around him from going after Hendricks himself. But Judge Caprio doesn't move, doesn't react, just looks at Hendricks with an expression of profound sadness. Then, quietly, calmly, with devastating precision, he responds. "Drop a comment right now telling us what you think Judge Caprio should say to this outburst." "Mr. Hendricks," Judge Caprio says, his voice now soft but somehow more powerful for it, "you just called me a pig. You just claimed to own me. You have done exactly what you did to Rachel Morrison. You have revealed, in this moment of stress, your true nature. You see people not as human beings with rights and dignity, but as things you can own, as objects beneath you, as animals." Hendricks is breathing hard, still standing, still defiant, but something in his eyes suggests he's starting to realize the magnitude of his mistake. "You have shown this court, and everyone in it, that Rachel Morrison was telling the truth, that Angela Martinez was telling the truth, that Melissa Chen was telling the truth. Because a man who would speak to a judge this way would absolutely speak to vulnerable women the same way. A man who thinks he owns a courtroom would absolutely think he owns the people he pulls over." Judge Caprio removes his glasses, leans forward. "But here's what you don't understand, Mr. Hendricks. You don't own anyone. You never did. The power you thought you had was borrowed. It was given to you by the people you swore to serve. And when you violated that trust, you lost that power. You're not a police chief anymore. You're not an authority figure. You're just a man who hurt people and is now facing consequences." Hendricks, attorney, is pulling hard on his arm now, desperately trying to get him to sit down. Hendricks finally collapses into his chair. "Here's my ruling," Judge Caprio continues. "You are hereby sentenced to 18 months in state prison, to be served in full with no early release. You are ordered to pay restitution to each of your victims in the amount of $50,000 for pain and suffering. You are permanently barred from working in law enforcement in any capacity, anywhere in the United States. And you are ordered to undergo mandatory counseling for anger management and abuse behavior." Hendricks is staring at the table now. The reality is setting in. But Mr. Hendricks, I want you to understand something else. This sentence is not about revenge. It's not about destroying you. It's about accountability. It's about teaching you and teaching everyone watching that we are all equal under the law, that a badge doesn't make you special, that power without character is tyranny. Judge Caprio looks at Rachel, at Angela, at Melissa. To the women who came forward in this case, I want you to know that I see you, I hear you, I believe you, and I am sorry that it took so long for the system to catch up to the truth. You are brave beyond measure. You have given other victims the courage to come forward. You have made your community safer, and I hope that today brings you some measure of peace. Rachel is crying, Angela is crying, Melissa is crying, but they're also smiling. Because for the first time since their encounters with Hendricks, they feel heard, they feel believed, they feel like justice is possible. This court is adjourned. The gavel bangs. If this moment gave you hope that justice can prevail, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories like this. What happens in the moments after Judge Caprio's ruling is captured by every news camera, every phone, every witness in that courtroom. Marcus Hendricks is taken into custody by the bailiffs. He doesn't resist, but his face is a mask of shock and disbelief. He genuinely didn't think he would be convicted. He genuinely believed that his position, his connections, his ability to lie convincingly would save him. He was wrong. As he's let out in handcuffs, he passes Rachel Morrison. For just a moment, their eyes meet. And Hendricks does something unexpected. He stops, looks at her, and says, very quietly, I'm sorry. Is he sorry? Is it genuine? Is it manipulation? Is it the first crack in years of denial? We'll never fully know. But Rachel hears it, and something in her face shifts. Not forgiveness exactly, but acknowledgement. Sarah Chen hugs Rachel. David hugs Rachel. Patricia hugs Rachel. Officer Rodriguez comes over, and Rachel thanks him with such genuine gratitude that Rodriguez has to fight back tears. Angela and Melissa introduce themselves to Rachel in person for the first time. Three women who never met before this case, who share a trauma they wish they didn't share, but who now also share a victory. They exchange phone numbers. They promise to stay in touch. They formed a bond forged in pain but sealed in justice. Outside the courtroom, the media circus is massive. Sarah Chen gives a brief statement about how this verdict sends a message that abuse of power will not be tolerated. Mitchell Grossman declines to comment, but looks visibly relieved to be done with this case. Officer Rodriguez is swarmed by reporters asking about his future in law enforcement. And Rachel Morrison, who 8 months ago couldn't leave her house, who lost her job, and her sense of safety and her belief in justice, stands in front of the cameras and speaks. I want to say to anyone watching this who has been victimized by someone in power, you are not alone. You are not crazy. You are not weak. The system is broken in many ways, but it can still work if we demand that it works, if we refuse to stay silent, if we support each other, if we believe survivors. Thank you to everyone who believed me when I thought nobody would. Quote, the clip goes viral within hours. You are not crazy. You are not weak. Becomes a rallying cry on social media. Rachel's face becomes a symbol of courage. But this story doesn't end at the courthouse steps. Because justice isn't just about the verdict. It's about what comes after. 3 weeks later, Rachel Morrison walks into Brookside Elementary School. She's not coming back to teach. Not yet. She's not ready for that. But she's meeting with Principal Gloria Chen to talk about creating a program to teach children about consent, boundaries, and speaking up when adults make them uncomfortable. Teachers are mandatory reporters, Rachel tells Gloria, but kids also need to know that they have rights. That nobody, not police, not teachers, not parents, not anyone, has the right to make them feel unsafe. If I can help create that curriculum, if I can help one child recognize abuse before it escalates, then maybe something good can come from what happened to me. Gloria agrees immediately. The program is developed over the next 6 months. It's piloted at Brookside, then adopted district-wide. Other districts take notice. Within a year, Rachel's program, as it becomes known, is being used in schools across Rhode Island. 4 months after the verdict, Officer James Rodriguez is fired from the Riverside Township Police Department. The official reason is failure to follow chain of command. The real reason is that he testified against the chief, and the old guard in the department will never forgive him for that. Rodriguez isn't unemployed for long. The Providence Police Department offers him a position. The Massachusetts State Police reaches out. The FBI contacts him about their witness protection unit. Rodriguez chooses Providence. He's promoted to detective within 18 months. He becomes known as someone victims can trust, someone who will fight for them even when it's hard. Rodriguez and Rachel stay in touch. They meet for coffee every few months. They've formed an unlikely friendship, this young officer and this traumatized teacher, both of whom did the right thing when it would have been easier to look away. 7 months after the verdict, Marcus Hendricks is in state prison. He's not in general population. As a former police chief, he's in protective custody for his own safety. He spends 23 hours a day in a cell, 1 hour for exercise in a small yard. He's lost weight, lost his confidence, lost everything he built over 28 years. His pension is under review. His house is being sold to pay the restitution. Both of his ex-wives have given interviews to various media outlets, adding their own stories to the public record of his abuse. But something is changing in Hendricks. Maybe it's the forced isolation. Maybe it's the mandatory counseling. Maybe it's simply the unavoidable reality that he destroyed his own life and hurt so many people in the process. 8 months into his sentence, Hendricks writes a letter. He writes it to Rachel Morrison. He doesn't expect her to read it. He doesn't expect forgiveness. But he writes it anyway. The letter is 5 pages long. In it, he admits everything. Not just the legal facts of what he did, but the psychological reality of why he did it. He writes about growing up with an abusive father who taught him that power and dominance were the only things that mattered. He writes about his failed marriages and his inability to see women as equals. He writes about his drinking and his anger and his belief that the badge made him special. He writes about the years of getting away with inappropriate behavior that escalated because nobody ever stopped him, and he writes this: "I told you I owned you. I told the judge he was a pig and that I owned him. I see now that I was the pig. I was the animal. I was the one who behaved like I had no humanity. You were innocent. You were just driving home from work, and I destroyed your life because I could. Because I'd done it before and gotten away with it. Because I thought power meant I was above consequences. I was wrong about everything. I don't ask for your forgiveness because I don't deserve it. I just want you to know that you were right to come forward. You saved other women from experiencing what you experienced. You stopped me. And even though it cost you so much, you did something I never did in 28 years of wearing a badge. You actually protected people." Rachel receives the letter forwarded through Sarah Chen. She reads it sitting at her kitchen table with David beside her. She cries while reading it, not because she forgives Hendricks, not because a letter erases what happened, but because she realizes that speaking up did matter, that standing up to him did break through his denial, that justice did change something. She doesn't respond to the letter. She doesn't need to. She folds it, puts it in a drawer, and moves forward with her life. Share this with someone who needs to hear that healing is possible after trauma. 1 year after the verdict, the Riverside Township Police Department undergoes massive reforms. The mayor, facing public pressure and potential lawsuits, fires the entire leadership team that protected Hendricks. A new chief is brought in from outside the department. Officer Walsh, who was at the dinner with Hendricks that night and lied about how much he'd been drinking, is terminated. Detective Freeman is demoted. New policies are implemented. Body cameras become mandatory. All complaints are now investigated by an independent civilian review board. Officers receive training on abuse of power, implicit bias, and proper conduct during traffic stops. The department will never be perfect. No institution is. But it's better, safer, more accountable. 18 months after the verdict, Marcus Hendricks is released from prison. He's served his full sentence. He's completed his counseling. He's 65 years old now, looking 75. Prison ages people, especially people who aren't used to being powerless. He moves to a small apartment in a different state, gets a job doing maintenance at a storage facility, lives quietly, attends AA meetings, continues counseling on his own even though it's no longer court-mandated. He'll never work in law enforcement again. He'll never have authority over others again. He'll spend the rest of his life as a cautionary tale, an example of what happens when power corrupts and when corruption goes unchecked for too long. But he's also, in some small way, trying to be better than he was. Whether that matters, whether it makes up for anything, is not for him to decide. 2 years after the verdict, Rachel Morrison goes back to teaching. Not at Brookside. She's moved to a different district, a fresh start. She teaches 4th grade now. She loves her students. She loves teaching again. She still has anxiety sometimes. She still has moments when she sees a police car and her heart rate spikes. Trauma doesn't disappear completely, but she's also stronger than she was. She knows she can survive the worst things she thought could happen. She knows she can speak up even when it's terrifying. She knows she can face her abuser and win. On the anniversary of the verdict, Rachel posts something on social media. It's a photo of her classroom, full of smiling children, with a caption. 2 years ago today, I learned that justice is possible, that speaking up matters, that survivors can win. Thank you to everyone who believed me, who fought for me, who stood with me. And to anyone still suffering in silence, your voice matters. Your truth matters. You matter. Don't give up. The post gets 47,000 shares. Hundreds of people comment with their own stories. Some are still waiting for justice. Some got it. Some never will. But they're all connected now by Rachel's courage to speak, to stand up, to refuse to be silenced. And that, more than any verdict, more than any sentence, more than any punishment, is the real victory. Not just stopping one abuser, but inspiring countless others to stop accepting abuse. If this story inspired you, if it gave you hope, if it made you believe that one person can make a difference, then do 3 things right now. First, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel so you never miss stories of justice and courage. Second, drop a comment telling us about a time you stood up for what was right even when it was hard. Your story might inspire someone else who needs to hear it. Third, share this video with someone who needs to see it, someone who's facing their own abuse, someone who thinks powerful people can't be stopped, someone who needs to know that justice is possible. Because that's how change happens. Not through one dramatic courtroom moment, although those help, but through ordinary people making the extraordinary decision to speak up, to stand up, to refuse to accept that power means being above the law. Judge Frank Caprio once said in an interview years ago, "The law is not about punishment. It's about teaching. It's about showing people that we have standards, that we have values, that we have lines we will not let anyone cross, no matter who they are." That's what happened in that courtroom on March 14, 2023. A lesson was taught. Standards were enforced. Lines were defended. Marcus Hendricks thought he owned people. He learned he was wrong. Rachel Morrison thought she was powerless. She learned she wasn't. And everyone watching learned that the system, broken as it often is, can still work when brave people demand that it work. Before you go, I want to leave you with one final thought. The story you just heard is based on real patterns of abuse that happen every day in departments across this country. The names were changed. Some details were dramatized for narrative impact. But the core truth, the fundamental reality of what happens when authority meets corruption and victims meet courage, is real. There are Rachel Morrisons right now, today, in your community who are deciding whether to come forward, whether to report, whether to risk everything to stop someone who hurt them. Your reaction to their stories will determine whether they speak up or stay silent. Believe survivors. Support them. Protect them. Fight for them. Because the Marcus Hendricks of the world are counting on your silence, your doubt, your apathy to protect them. Don't give them that protection. Be the Officer Rodriguez. Be the Sarah Chen. Be the Judge Caprio. Be the person who sees injustice and says, "Not on my watch." That's how we change the world, one act of courage at a time. Now, I promised I'd tell you about our next video, and it's going to blow your mind. We're covering the story of a mother who walked into a courtroom thinking she was defending her son, only to discover evidence that changed everything. You won't believe what this judge does when the truth comes out. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. Thank you for believing that justice matters. And remember, you are not powerless. You are not alone. And your voice can change everything. Hit that subscribe button one more time if you haven't already. Like this video, comment below, and share it with someone who needs hope today. See you in the next one.